Leah's lifestyle. I hope you guys are having a good day. We are going to do our book club section of the day today. Today, I've actually been gifted a book from a friend, and so I want to get through it pretty quickly. So we will be reading and discussing until we're done every day The Highly Sensitive Person: How to Thrive When the World Overwhelms You by Elaine N. Aron, Ph.D., best-selling author for The Highly Sensitive Person in Love. Now with a new author's note and updated research. Interesting. Let's read the back of it. I haven't looked at it at all. They said someone gave it to them. They read it and they feel like it helped, so they gave it to me. So I figured I will read it. Are you a highly sensitive person? Do you have keen imagination and vivid dreams? Yes. Is time alone each day as essential to you as food and water? Are you too shy or too sensitive according to others? Do noise and confusion quickly overwhelm you? If your answers are yes, you may be a highly sensitive person, HSP. Most of us feel overstimulated every once in a while, but for the highly sensitive person, it's a way of life. It's a groundbreaking book. Dr. Elaine N, a clinical psychologist, workshop leader, and highly sensitive person herself, shows you how to identify this trait in yourself and make the most of it everyday situation. Drawing on her many years of research and hundreds of interviews, she shows how you can better understand yourself and your trait to create a fuller, richer life. The highly sensitive person you will discover. Self-assessment tests to help you identify your particular sensitivities, ways to reframe your past experiences in a positive light and gain greater self-esteem in the process, insight into how high sensitivity affects both work and personal relationships, tips on how to deal with over-arousal, information on medication and when to seek help, techniques to enrich the soul and spirit. Interesting. All right, let's get into it. What readers are saying. The first page, acknowledgments. We'll read past that. Content. The author's note. Okay. Well, she started with her revision sentence essentially saying that she doesn't feel like there's anything she needs to change, so. I'm realizing that maybe I don't. There's author notes like all over this bitch. I'm realizing I'm just looking for the first chapter. There we are. The facts about being highly sensitive. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is the preface. Okay. Well, there's a good 30 pages between the author's notes, because I'm going to say many, there's many author's notes, and the first chapter, and in the preface, it seems there's 6 pages right there. Wow. I might read that. It depends. We're going to start this first chapter. I don't typically read all that stuff in the beginning. I think it somewhat bores me, and on top of that, I get quite... It ruins it for me. So we're just going to start reading. Okay. Let's get started. Wait, hold on. Chapter 1. The facts about being highly sensitive. A wrong sense of being flawed. In this chapter, you will learn the basic facts about your trait and how it makes you different from others. You will also discover the rest of your inherited personality and have your eyes opened about your culture's view of you. But first, you should meet Christine. She thought she was crazy. I say that all the time. You're rating? Oh, hello. Oh, hi. Oh, my goodness. Ah. Thank you for the raid. 1 second. Oh, I don't know what to do. I appreciate you. How are you doing today? I'm just reading. I'm gonna copy this stuff real quick. Hold on. I appreciate the raid. Thank you so much. I hope you're having a good day. I hope you had a good stream. I'm just putting your information in so I can find you. Oh my gosh, you were streaming earlier, weren't you? Yeah, you're the one that I bumped into. I hope you're having a good day. I hope your stream went well. I hope your practice went well. I know it's hard to get in the daily practice. Okay. She thought she was crazy. Christine was the 23rd interview of my research on HSPs. She was an intelligent, clear-eyed college student, but soon into our interview, her voice began to tremble. "I'm sorry," she whispered, "but I really signed up to see you because you're a psychologist, and I had to talk to someone who could tell me." Her voice broke. "Am I crazy?" I studied her with sympathy. She was obviously feeling desperate, but nothing she had said so far had given me any sense of mental illness. But then I was already listening differently to people like Christine. She tried again, as if afraid to give me time to answer. "I feel so different. I always did. I mean, my family was great. My childhood was almost idyllic, until I had to go to school. Although Mom says I was always a grumpy baby." She took a breath. I said something reassuring, and she plunged on. "But in nursery school, I was afraid of everything, even music time. When they would pass out the pots and pans and pound, I would put my hands over my ears and cry." She looked away, her eyes glistening with tears now, too. "In elementary school, I was always the teacher's pet, yet they'd say I was spacey." Her spaciness prompted a distressing series of medical and psychological tests, first for mental retardation. As a result, she was enrolled in a program for the gifted, which did not surprise me. Oh yeah, I feel like we're reading like a little monologue of my own life right now. Of course, thank you. Have a good day. I wish you luck. Yeah, but I kind of feel like I'm just reading like a chunk of the part where like she was put into the gifted class. I'm like, oh yeah, I feel that. I feel that. Still, the message was something is wrong with the child. Her hearing was tested normal. In 4th grade, she had a brain scan on the theory that her inwardness was due to petite mal seizures. Her brain was normal.
The final diagnosis, she had trouble screening out stimuli, but the result was a child who believed she was defective. Special but deeply misunderstood. The diagnosis was right as far as it went. HPS do take in a lot, all the subtleties others miss. But what seems ordinary to others, like loud music or crowds, can be highly stimulating and thus stressful for HSPs. Most people ignore sirens, glaring lights, strange odors, clutter, and chaos. HPSs are disturbed by them. Most people's feet may be tired at the end of a day in a mall or a museum, but they're ready for more when you suggest an evening party. HPSs need solitude after such a day. They feel jangled and over aroused. I don't know if I like that word. I've read it once already, and I'm not enjoying reading it or having to say it out loud. Most people walked into a room and perhaps noticed the furniture, the people that's about it. HPSs can be instantly aware whether they wish to be or not of the mood, the friendships, the enmities, the freshness or staleness of the air, the personality of the one who arranged the flowers. The fact about uh, if you are an HSP, however, it is hard to grasp that you have some remarkable ability. How do you compare inner experiences? Not easily. Mostly, you notice that you seem unable to tolerate as much as other people. You forget that you belong to a group that has often demonstrated great creativity, insight, passion, and caring, all highly valued by society. We are a package deal, however. Our traits of sensitivity means we will also be cautious, inward, needing extra time alone. Because people without the trait, the majority, do not understand that. They see us as timid, shy, weak, or that greater sense, greater, greatest sin of all, unsociable. Fearing these labels, we try to be like others, but that leads to our becoming over-aroused and distressed. Then that gets us labeled neurotic or crazy, first by others and then by ourselves. Christian's dangerous year. Sooner or later, everyone encounters stressful life experiences, but HSPs react more to such stimulation. If you see this reaction as part of some basic flaw, you intensify the stress already present in any life crisis. Next come feelings of hopelessness and worthlessness. Christian, for example, had such a crisis the year she started college. She had attended a low-key private high school and had never been away from home. Suddenly she was living among strangers, fighting crowds for courses and books, and always overstimulated. Next she fell in love, fast and hard, as HSPs can do. Shortly after, she went to Japan to meet her boyfriend's family, an event she already had good reason to fear. It was while she was in Japan that, in her words, she flipped out. Kristen had never thought of herself as an anxious person, but suddenly in Japan she was overcome by fears and could not sleep. Then she became depressed, frightened by her own emotions. Her self-confidence plummeted. Her young boyfriend could not cope with her craziness and wanted to end the relationship. By then she had returned to school, but feared she was going to fail at that too. Kristen was on the edge. She looked up at me after sobbing out the last of her story. That's so sad. That's gonna be so frustrating. I guess I understand. Then I heard about the research, what about being sensitive, and I thought, could that be me? But it isn't. I know. Is it? I told her that of course I could not be sure from such a brief conversation, but I believed that yes, her sensitivity in combination with all these stresses might well explain her state of mind. And so I had the privilege of explaining Christian to herself, an explanation obviously long overdue. Defining high sensitivity, 2 facts to remember. Fact 1. Everyone, HSP or not, feels best when neither too bored nor too aroused. I hate that they keep using the word arouse, but okay. An individual will perform best on any kind of task, whether engaged in a conversation or playing in the Super Bowl, if his or her nervous system is moderately alert and aroused. Too little arousal and one is dull, ineffective. To change that under arousal physical state, we drink some coffee, turn on the radio, call a friend, strike up a conversation with a total stranger, change careers, anything. At the other extreme, too much arousal in the nervous system and anyone will become distressed, clumsy, and confused. We cannot think, the body is not coordinated, we feel out of control. Again, we have many ways to correct the stimulation. Sometimes we rest, are mentally shut down. Some of us drink alcohol or take Valium. The best amount of arousal falls somewhere in the middle, that there is a need and desire for an optimal level of arousal is, in fact, one of the most solid findings of physiology. It is true for everyone, even infants. They hate to feel bored or overwhelmed. Facts 2. People differ considerably in how much their neurosystem is aroused in the same situation under the same stimulation. The difference is largely inherited and is very real and normal. In fact, it can be observed in all higher animals, mice, cats, dogs, horses, monkeys, humans. Within a species, the percentage that is very sensitive to stimulus is usually about the same, about 15 to 20%. Just as some with a species are a little bigger size than others, some are a little more sensitive. In fact, through careful breeding of animals, mating, the sensitive ones and each other can create a sensitive strain in just a few generations. In short, among inborn traits of temperament, this one creates the most dramatic, observable difference. The good news and the not so good news. What this difference is, arousability means, is that notice levels of stimulation that go unobserved by others. This is true whether we are talking about subtle sounds, sights, or physical sensations like pain. It is not that your hearing, vision, or other senses are more acute. Plenty of HSPers wear glasses. The difference seems to lie somewhere on the way to the brain or in the brain, in a more careful processing of information. We reflect more on everything. We sort things into finer distinctions, like those machines that grade fruit by size. We sort into sizes while others sort into 2 or 3. This greater awareness of the subtle tends to make you more intuitive, which simply means picking up and working through information in a semi-conscious or unconscious way. The result is that you often just know without realizing how. Furthermore, the deeper processing of subtle details causes you to consider the past or future more. You just know how things got to be the way they are or how they are going to turn out. This is that sixth sense people talk about. It can be wrong, of course, just as your eyes and ears can be wrong, but your intuition is right often enough that HSPs tend to be visionaries, highly intuitive artists or inventors, as well as more conscious, and wise people. The downside of the trait shows up more intense levels of stimulation. What is moderately arousing for most people is highly arousing for HSPs. What is highly arousing for most people causes an HSP to become very frazzled indeed, until they reach a shutdown point called transmigranal inhibition. Transmigranal inhibition was first discussed around the turn of the century by the Russian physiologist Ivan Pavlov. I know Ivan Pavlov. I don't remember all of his stuff, but hey. Who was convinced that the most basic inherited difference among people was how soon they reached this shutdown point, and that the quick And that the quick to shut down. Hold on. Who was convinced that the most basic inherited difference among people was how soon they reached the shutdown point, and that the quick to shut down have a fundamental different type of nervous system. No one likes being over aroused, HSP or not. A person feels out of control, and the whole body warns that it is in trouble. Over arousal often means failing to perform that one's best. Of course, it can also mean danger. An extra dread of over arousal may even be built into all of us. Since a newborn cannot run or fight or even recognize danger, it is best if it howls at anything new, anything arousing at all, so that grown-ups can come and rescue it. Like the fire department, we HSPs mostly respond to false alarms, but if our sensitivity saves a life even once, it is a trait that has a genetic payoff. So yes, when our trait leads to overarousal, it is a nuisance, but it's part of a package deal with many advantages. The sun though right now. More about stimulation. Stimulation is anything that wakes up the nervous system, gets the attention, makes the nerves fire off another round of the little electric charges that they carry. We usually think of stimulation as coming from outside, but of course it can come from our body, such as pain, muscle tension, hunger, thirst, or sexual feelings, or as memories, fantasies, thoughts, or plans. Stimulation can vary in intensity. Like the loudness of a noise or in duration, it can be more stimulating because it is novel, as when one is startled by a honk or a shout, or in its complexity, as when one is at a party and hearing four conversations at once, plus music. Yeah, I've done that before. Often we can get used to stimulation, but sometimes we think we have and aren't being bothered, but suddenly feel exhausted and realize why. We have been putting up with something at a conscious level while it was actively wearing us down. Even a moderate and familiar stimulation, like a day at work, can cause HSP to need HSP to need quiet by evening. At that point, one more small stimulation can be the last straw. Stimulation is even more complicated because the same stimulus can have different meanings for different people. A crowded shopping mall at Christmas time may remind one person of happy family shopping exercises and create a warm holiday spirit, but another person may have been forced to go shopping with others, tried to buy gifts without enough money and no idea of what to purchase, had unhappy memories of past holidays, and so suffers intensely in malls at Christmas. One general rule is that when we have no control over stimulus, it is more upsetting, even more so if we feel we are someone's victim. While music played by ourselves may be pleasant, heard from the neighbor's stereo, it can be annoying. And if we have previously asked them to turn it down, it becomes a hostile invasion. This book may even increase your annoyance a bit as you begin to appreciate that you are a minority whose rights to have less stimulation are generally ignored. Obviously, it would help if we were entitled and detached from all of these associations so that nothing could arouse us. No wonder so many HSPs become interested in spiritual paths. Interesting. There's a valuing our sensitivity thing up at the top. It says, think back to one or more times that your sensitivity has saved you or someone else from suffering, great loss, or even death. In my own case, I and all my family would be dead if I had not awakened the first flicker of a firelight in the ceiling of an old wooden house in which we were living. Dude, that literally happened to me. That's so crazy. Yeah. I mean, yeah, of course. Like, I guess, like, you can think of it as, like, a positive thing. There's plenty of positive things that happen. But I guess, like, the unpositive thing, right, is, like, for example, now, I feel like as a younger kid, for my survival, I needed to be able to ignore my sensitivities, and so I did. And, like, as an adult, now I'm struggling to ignore them because I no longer need to do it out of safety. And for my, like, I don't feel like I'm trying to survive or just live, like, so, like, I'm, allowing myself to feel things. The problem is I don't know how to fucking deal with them. That's how it be, right? Okay. Is arousal really different from anxiety and fear? It's important not to confuse arousal with fear. Fear creates arousal, but so do many other emotions, including joy, curiosity, or anger. But we can also be over-aroused by semi-conscious thoughts or how low levels of excitement that create no obvious emotions. Often we are not aware of what is arousing us, such as the newness of a situation or noise or the many things our eyes are seeing. Actually, there are several ways to be aroused and still other ways to feel aroused. To be aroused and still other ways to feel aroused. And they differ from time to time and from person to person. Arousal may appear as blushing, trembling, heart pounding, hands shaking, foggy thinking, stomach churning, muscle tensing, and hands or other parts of the body perspiring. Often people in such situations are not aware of something or all of these reactions as they may occur. On the other hand, some people say they feel aroused, but that arousal shows up very little in any of these ways. Still, the term does describe something that all these experiences and physical states share, like the word stress. Arousal is a word that really communicates something we all know about, even if that something varies a lot. And of course, stress is closely related to arousal. Our response to stress is to become aroused. Once we do notice arousal, we want to name it and know its source in order to recognize danger. And often we think that our arousal is due to fear. We do not realize that our heart may be pounding from the sheer effort of processing extra stimulation, or other people assume we are afraid given our obvious arousal, so we assume it too. Then, deciding we must be afraid, we become even more aroused, and we avoid the situation in the future when staying in it and getting used to it might have calmed us down. We will discuss again the importance of not confusing fear and arousal in Chapter 5 when we talk about shyness. That makes me wonder, she just brought up a Chapter 5. So where does this Chapter 2? Okay. Hey, I guess we're going to Chapter 2. There's quite a bit of pages. We'll see how we get there. We're only doing an hour. It's to the next chapter or to an hour. That's how it works. Your trait really does make you special. There are many fruits growing from the trait of sensitivity. Your mind works differently. Please remember that what follows is on the average. Nobody has all of these traits, but compared to non-HSPs, most of us are better at spotting errors and avoiding making errors. Highly conscientious. Yeah. Able to concentrate deeply, but we do best without distractions. Agreed. Especially good at tasks requiring vigilance, accuracy, speed, and the detection of minor differences. Speed, maybe not if you want all the other things from me. Speed is like its own thing. I can do everything else altogether, but not with speed. I can do speed, but not everything else. One or the other. Get speed or you don't get speed. Able to process material to deeper levels of what psychologists call somatic memory. Okay, agreed. often thinking about our own thinking. Okay, yeah. Able to learn without being aware we have learned. If I don't know where that I learned. Okay. Anyways, deeply affected by other people's moods and emotions. Agreed. Of course, there are many exceptions, especially to our beings of conscientious, and we don't want to be self righteous about this. Plenty of harm can be done in the name of trying to do good. Agreed. Indeed, all of these fruits have their bruised spots. We are so skilled, but alas, when being watched, timed, or evaluated, we often cannot display our competence. Ouch! Our deeper processing make it seem that at first we are not catching on, but with time we understand and remember more than others. This may be why HSPs learn languages better, although arousal may make one less fluent than others when speaking. Yeah. By the way, thinking more than others about our own thoughts is not self centeredness. I don't think so either. I feel like it's a curse. It means that if asked what's on our mind, we are less likely to mention being aware of the world around us and more likely to mention our inner reflections or musings. Agreed. But we are no less likely to mention thinking about other people. Our bodies are often too. Most of us have nervous systems that make us. Most of our bodies are different too. I read that right. Most of us have nervous systems that make us specialists in fine motor movement. Yeah, I got cat-like skills. Good at holding still. Agreed. Morning people. Kinda, yeah. More affected by stimulus like caffeine unless we are very used to them. More right-brained, less linear, more creative in synchronizing ways. Yep. More sensitive to things in the air. Yes, that means more hay fever and skin rashes. That one I don't actually have much of comparatively to a lot of people, honestly. I lucked out there on that. Overall, again, our nervous systems seem designed to reach to subtle experiences, which also makes us slower to recovery when we must react to intense stimuli. Yep. But HSPs are not in a more aroused state all the time. We are not chronically aroused in day-to-day life or when asleep. We are just more aroused by new or prolonged stimulus. Being an HSP is not the same as being neurotic. This is constantly anxious for no apparent reason. How to think about your differences. I hope that by now you're seeing your trait in positive terms, but I really suggest trying to view it as neutral. It becomes an advantage or disadvantage only when you enter a particular situation. Since the trait exists in all higher animals, it must have value in many circumstances. My hunch is that it survives in a certain percentage of all higher animals because it is useful to have at least a few around who are always watching for subtle signs. 15 to 20% seems about the right portion to have always on the alert for danger, new foods, the needs of the young and sick, the habits of other animals. Of course, it is also good to have quite a few in a group who are not so alert to all of the dangers and consequences of every action. They will rush out without a whole lot of thought to explore every new thing or fight for the group or territory. Every society needs both. And maybe there is a need for more of the less sensitive because more of them tend to get killed. This is all speculation, of course. Another hunch of mine, however, is that the human race benefits more from HSPs than do other species. HSPs do more of that which makes humans different from other animals. We imagine possibilities. We humans, and HSPs especially, are acutely aware of the past and future. On top of that, if necessity is necessity 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 thank you If necessity is the mother of invention, HSPs must spend far more time trying to invent solutions to human problems just because they are more sensitive to hunger, cold, insecurity, and exhaustion and illness. Whoops. Sometimes people with our trait are said to be less happy or less capable of happiness. Of course, we can seem unhappy and moody, at least to non HSPs, because we spend so much time thinking about things like the meaning of life and death and how complicit everything is, not black and white thoughts at all. Since most non HSPs do not seem to enjoy thinking about such things, they assume we must be unhappy doing all that pondering, and we currently don't get any happier having them tell us we are unhappy by their definition of happy, and that we are a problem for them because we seem unhappy. All those accusations could make anyone unhappy. The point is best made by Aristotle, who supposedly asked, Aristotle. The point, okay, the point is best made by Aristotle, who supposedly asked, would you rather be be a happy pig or an unhappy human? HSPs prefer the good feeling of being very conscious, very human, even if what we are conscious of is not always cause for rejoicing. The point, however, is not that non-HSPs are pigs. I know someone is going to say I'm trying to make an elite out of us. But that would last about 5 minutes with most HSPs who would soon feel guilty for feeling superior. I'm just out to encourage us enough to make more of us feel like equals. Oh, it's so sad. And it's so true. It's so true. Wow. Oh my gosh. This is great. I'm going to enjoy this book. I hope you guys are. Heredity and environment. Some of you may be wondering if you really inherited this trait, especially if you remember a time when your sensitivity seemed to begin or greatly increase. In most cases, sensitivity is inherited. The evidence for this is strong, mainly from studies of identical twins who are raised apart but grew up behaving similarly, which always suggests that behavior is at least partly genetically determined. Oof, I guess I knew that. It's hard to accept, though. On the other hand, it is not always true that both separated twins show the traits, even if they are identical. For example, each twin will also tend to develop personality quite like the mother raising the twin, even though she is not the biological mother. The fact is, there is probably no inherited traits that cannot also be enhanced, decreased, or entirely produced or eliminated by enough of certain kinds of life experiences. For example, a child under stress at home or at school only needs to be born with a slight tendency to be sensitive, and he or she will withdraw, which may explain why children who have older brothers and sisters are more likely to be HSPs, and that would have nothing to do with genes. Similarly, studies of baby monarchies traumatized by separation from their mothers have found that these monkeys, similarly studies of baby monkeys traumatized by separation from their mothers have found that these monkeys in adulthood behave much like monkeys born innately sensitive. Circumstances can also force the trait to disappear. Many children born very sensitive are pushed by hard parents, schools, or friends to be bolder. Living in a noisy or crowded environment, growing up in a large family, or being made to be more physically active, many sometimes reduce sensitivity, just as sensitive animals that are handled a great deal with backing up. I just have to read. Living in a noisy or crowded environment, growing up in a large family, or being made to be more physically active may sometimes reduce sensitivity. Just as sensitive animals that are handled a great deal with sometimes lose some of their natural caution, at least with certain people or in specific situations. That the underlining trait is entirely gone, however, seems unlikely. What about you? It is difficult to know for any particular adult whether you inherit the trait or develop it during your life. The best evidence, through hardly perfect, is whether your parents rem, remember you as sensitive from the time you were born. If it is easy to do so, ask them, or whoever was your caretaker, to tell you all about what you were like in the first 6 months of life. Probably you will learn more if you do not begin by asking if you were sensitive. Just ask what you were like as a baby. Often the stories about you will tell it all. After a while, ask some typical signs of highly sensitive babies where you difficult about change, about being undressed and put into water at bath time, about trying new foods, about noises. Did you have a colic often? Were you slow to fall asleep, hard to keep asleep, or a short sleeper, especially when you were overtired? Remember, if your parents had no experience with other babies, they may not have noticed anything unusual at the age because they had no one to compare you to. Also, given all the blaming of parents for their children's every difficulty, your parents may need to convince you and themselves that all was perfect in your childhood. If you want, you can reassure them that you know they did their best and that all babies pose a few problems, but that you wonder which problems you presented. You might also let them see the questionnaire as the front of this book. Ask them if they are or anyone else in the family has this trait. Especially if you find relatives with it on both sides, the odds are very good your trait is inherited. But what if it wasn't? Or you aren't sure? It's probably best not to matter at all. What does is that it is your trait now. So do not struggle too long over the question. The next topic is far more important. Learning about our culture, what you don't realize will hurt you. You and I are learning to see our traits as neutral things, useful in some situations, not in others, but our culture definitely does not see it, or any trait, as neutral. The anthropologist Margaret Mead explained it well. Although cultures' newborns will show a broad range of inherited temperaments, only a narrow band of these, a certain type, will be the ideal. The ideal personality is embodied and meets work in every thread of the social fabric, in the care of the young child, the games the children play, the song the people sing, the political organization, the religious observance, the art of the philosophy. I'm going to read it one more time because that was strange. Okay. Every thread of the social fabric in the care of the young child, the games the children play, the songs the people sing, the political organizations, the religious observance, the art and the philosophy. Other traits are ignored, discouraged, or, if all these else fails, ridiculed. Yeah. What is the ideal in our culture? Movies, advertisement, the design of public space all tell us we should be as tough as the Terminator, as stoic as Clint Eastwood, as outgoing as Goldie Hawn. We should be pleasantly stimulated by bright light noises, a gang of cheerful fellows hanging out in the bar. If we are feeling overwhelmed and sensitive, we can always take a painkiller. If you remember only one thing from this book, it should be the following research study. Xin Chen and Kenneth Rubin of the University of Waterloo in Ontario, Canada, and Yurong Sun of Shanghai Teachers University compared 480 school children in Shanghai to 296 in Canada to see what traits made children most popular. In China, shy and sensitive children were among those most chosen by others to be friends or playmates. In Mandarin, the word for shy or quiet means good or well behaved. Sensitive can be translated as having understanding or term of praise. In Canada, shy and sensitive children were among the least chosen. Choices are: this is the kind of attitude you faced growing up. Think about the impact on you of not being the ideal for your culture. It has to affect you, not only how others have treated you, but how you have come to treat yourself. Ooh. This. Shedding the majority's rule. 1. What was your parents' attitude towards your sensitivity? Did they want you to keep it or lose it? Did they think of it as an inconvenience, as shyness, unmanliness, cowardice, a sign of artistic ability, cute? What about your other relatives, your friends, your teachers? Number 2. Think about the media, especially in childhood. Who were your role models and idols? Did they seem like HSPs, or were they people you now see you could never be like? 3. Consider your resulting attitude. How has it affected your career, romantic relationships, recreational activities, and friendships? 4. How are you as an HSP being treated now by the media? Think about positive and negative images of HSPs which predominate. Note that when someone is a victim in a movie or a book, he or she is often portrayed as by nature sensitive, vulnerable, overaroused. This is good for dramatic effect because the victim is visibly shaken and upset, but bad for HSPs because victim comes to be equated with sensitivity. 5. Think about HSPs have contributed to society. Look for examples you know personally or have read about. Abraham Lincoln is probably a place to start. 6. Think about your own contributions to society. Whatever you are doing, sculpting, raising children, studying physics, voting, you tend to reflect deeply on the issues and attend to the details, have a vision of the future, and attempt to be conscientious. Wow. Those are some good ones, some good things to think about right now. And I would love to end this kind of going over this. This is page 16. We're short, like a good couple pages. 22 is the end. But I just want to kind of chat a little bit about this. And I think it's very common in our culture for people not to like shyness, or like sensitivity people. I remember as a kid trying to help one of my sisters out of being sensitive because our parents would be extremely mean to her, especially the dad, the man in the house, he would be so angry every time she was sensitive, and it was just kind of ridiculous, And so it's like, you can't do anything to the dad, you can't say anything to him. That's how it felt. So it's like I have to help her adjust, which is really sad because like that makes me feel really guilty now because I'm like, man, I wish my brain had functioned in a way in which like I had blamed him for making her like that instead of being like, feeling like there was nothing I could change about him, so I had to change her. Wondering how it like affects your relationships too, allowing that, and like how you perceive people, even yourself, because even if you are someone like that, it can be very easy to perceive those people as bad, and therefore you're perceiving yourself as bad, but you don't think about it that way, yeah, these are some deep concepts to really think on. I think that's like another thing, right? Like your like last number 6, think about your own contributions to society wherever you're doing sculpting, whatever, right? You're always thinking very deeply, and that's like what a moment that I have to take right now is just like this. That's very true. Like each one of these, I'm gonna be thinking about this all day now. Like, I definitely will be. Like, I'm gonna be thinking about what it means to me and like the negative side of being a highly sensitive person and being sensitive to things and like how it's portrayed in the media. Um, I'm a little surprised, to be honest. Though I was expecting the book to be decent, I wasn't expecting to kind of connect with it so quickly. I was referred to this book by a friend, and so based on who they are, like I was like, okay, this will be a good book, but I'm just a little surprised myself here. I'm just gonna leave a little reminder, and we'll come back tomorrow and we'll read again. We'll get past chapter 2. But that is The Highly Sensitive Person by Elaine and Aron. So go grab your book. Meet me tomorrow here at 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and we'll read. And if anyone wants to join or collaborate with me, if you're a streamer and you want to read this book with me, let's collaborate. Reach out. I'll be posting these on YouTube, so that way people can read along and join us, listen to the ideas I'm getting, comments and stuff, and also share their own as we're going along. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and comment. What did you think about the first chapter of this book? How did you connect? Do you feel like you're going to be thinking about it all day? What are the things you did connect on? What are the things you didn't connect on? Does it feel like a part of you? Can you see someone else as you're like reading it? Let me know. I hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll see you soon.